Then Fan Expo Canada, let's give a warm welcome to Maile Flanagan and Amanda C. Miller. Keep it going, keep it going. You can do better than that. Get louder, get rowdier. Here we go. You just had to see them to get extra excited. All right, now I'm going to have one of my friends from the crew in a yellow shirt who is going to be walking around. Oh, my friend here in the black is going to be wandering around the microphone to get your audience questions.
I take it up with this and this in my hand.
The Queen.
Sorry.
Did you push off?
I'm so short.
She's too little.
Thanks.
We should have had attendance to attend the Queen.
Yes. Thanks, son.
No problem, Dad.
The father-son dynamic at play already.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to you one of my favorite things to talk to people who are so beloved by the fans for these signature characters is what you're a fan of. So many people, Naruto and Boruto mean a lot to them. Mm-hmm. Who are the characters? Who are the franchises, the movies, the cartoons? Whether it was when you were a kid or just that mean a lot to you in the way that the love you get from the other side of the table, comes from the fans.
Well, I grew up overseas, so I wasn't exposed to a lot of the stuff that, Americans were, so much later when I moved back for college. But I'm a fan of classic comedies, like Mary Tyler Moore and stuff like that. I'm also a fan of The Simpsons, which I think is amazing. And I was thrilled when I got to do a Tom and Jerry movie, one of my first animated features. And I lived in... Anyway, across at Warner Brothers, that's where it's from, they put a big mural up of the movie, and my name was in the on the thing, on the wall at Warner Brothers. So that was kind of amazing, because everybody knows Tom and Jerry. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I was a 90s kid, so I grew up in this golden age.
You grew up on Sailor Moon,
I grew up on Sailor
you are
Moon,
one of the sailors.
And Sailor Moon was my favorite show, and Sailor Jupiter was my favorite character, so it's definitely a cool, full circle kind of thing. I love the whole Toonami block. I love the Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. I don't think anybody else watched that one, but I loved that one. I just loved these shows. I ended up really getting into Monty Python in high school. I was that annoying person who's always like, your father smells of elderberries, and I thought I was original.
Look, a lot of us were that annoying person.
We thought oh, I'm so unique. But yeah, I love good comedies. I love dark comedies.
Yeah,
that push the boundaries and are just they're still funny. Not stuff that's just shocking to be shocking, but a lot of British comedy is very dry and dark and just kind of saying.
Ab Fab.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
exactly.
a great one. Yeah.
As a Sailor Moon fan myself, I've got to indulge myself for a moment. As a fan of Sailor Jupiter, what is it about Sailor Jupiter that you loved when you were a fan before you got the very important mantle to carry?
When I was a kid, I was an Air Force kid, so I was moving around a lot. I was always the new girl at school that people were stay away from her. But also, I was tall. I grew up. I was almost this tall in 5th grade. So it's I think I was 5'5" at the time. Now I'm 5'8". But so I'm used to being the tall, awkward new girl. And also, I was very much I liked playing soccer and hockey, but I also liked girly stuff. And so she kind of represented that duality of she likes martial arts and throwing men over her head, but then she also wants to bake them a cake and marry them. So I just liked that. I saw a lot of that. And she's tough on the outside and then a soft, squishy middle on the inside.
Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and it's real easy to say, "Oh, Mary is my favorite character on the show," but I was also a little partial to Lou Grant.
Oh yeah.
Did you have members of that supporting cast that, in particular, I guess I wouldn't say that you think are underrated, but that just particularly grabbed you and just all they had to do is not even say something, but look a certain way.
Ted Knight. Of course. I mean, his delivery was insane. And so unique. I don't think anyone could do him, I loved him. I loved Lou and Mary and all of them. Rhoda, when she was there. Yeah.
Now, a question that I'm sure that you get a lot is, what got you into voice acting? I'd want to take a different angle on it and ask, what was it, being a fan of different things like this, was that what led you to want to be a performer of some sort? How did you find yourself on the path to being a performer of any kind, whatever your initial ambition was?
I did not intend to become a performer. I studied poli-sci and math in college, And but
Nerd.
I know. And I'm such a nerd. And in my sophomore year, some girls down the hall from my dorm were like, "You're funny. You should try out for this comedy group." And I did. And so I started doing improv comedy in college, just for fun. And then afterwards, I reformed my comedy group, and we performed on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And then we were pretty good. And so we said, let's keep it together. And so I gave up my dreams. I wanted to be a politician or a State Department person or a spy like my father was. And instead, I became an actor. But I didn't intend to be a voice actor. That was never my intent. My agents just said, you have a weird voice, take these classes. And then I did, and then I became a voice actor.
Now, you're not telling us that there's no possibility that we could have a President Flanagan one of these days. You're not ruling it out.
I'm not ruling it out.
I mean, we could maybe use you.
I have a checkered past. No, I'll never be the president. That's for sure.
Amanda, what brought you into the performing life?
See, now I'm like, forget my question. I want to know what scandals Miley has in her closet.
Has Miley
Nothing
carried
really
out
bad.
any assassinations or something?
She's ordered hits on people.
No.
Not that I'm aware
That
of.
interesting.
What was the question? Sorry.
What led you to want to be a performer? I mean, was it being a Monty Python geek and memorizing bits and that sort of thing?
It was kind of just innate. Like, even when I was a kid, I would put on little performances for my parents, but I would say, like, turn around and don't look at me, because I had, like, horrible anxiety, and I was just like, ah. And they were like, how are you going to be a performer if nobody sees you? So it's a little funny that, like, voiceover kind of revealed itself to me. But honestly, I had gotten over that by the time in 8th grade, I think, was when I finally, like, the performance bug, like, really hit, because I was the new kid. I had just moved there, and that's an awful time to move, like, starting 8th grade, because that's the end of middle school. Everybody's already friends, so you didn't really have your people. So there was a show that they had us, I auditioned for a show with a friend to support her, and she didn't get in, and I did. Ooh. And I was like, oh, that's awkward, because I was just doing this to be here with you. But they had us write all these, like, sketches, and it was, like, silly stuff, but it was like what's on TV kind of thing. So, like, there's a sketch where I played the crocodile hunter bothering all these gators at, like, Petco and, like, getting escorted out by security and, like, you know, like a Martha Stewart sketch. And afterwards, all my friends were like, or all the people at the school were like, oh, you're funny. You're not just, like, I thought I was weird.
Yeah.
But, like, suddenly I became, like, not popular, but, like, I realized, oh, my weirdness and my awkwardness was actually humor.
It turns out weird is a job.
Yeah, it turns out it's a job. And, like, so I loved performing then, because I realized I could channel that weirdness into, like, creativity and being, you know, the Joker, or, you know, that sounds weird. I'm not the supervillain.
And
we got a spy, we got the Joker.
Yeah.
We have some secret lives that are coming to light.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned getting into improv, and as an improv person myself, one of my favorite encapsulations of what I think is so great about improv, and the reason everybody should take an improv class, Mark Evan Jackson, noted comedian, he's on The Good Place and all that kind of stuff, once said that it teaches you how to better communicate with other people in any context. And Amanda, you were talking about anxiety and nerves and, you know, fear of failure or messing up or something like that. How did you find that improv prepared you for the performing life that you live now?
Well, I mean, you have to be able to switch between characters pretty quickly. You learn how to kind of do accents, or at least attempt to do accents. And you learn, obviously, how to be funny, but engaged and real at the same time. I forgot to mention, because we're in Toronto, which I kind of forgot for 1 minute, that I was a big fan, I'm really old, you guys, but of SCTV and Second City in general. I mean, you know, like Catherine O'Hara, you know, you can't beat anybody. Like, she's just brilliant.
I'm so glad she's getting, like, that Schitt's Creek kind of reintroduced her to the world, because she's been working forever. But, like, I feel like, you know, there's Beetlejuice, and then, like, all the, was it Christopher Guest movies?
Yeah.
And then I felt like she kind of disappeared.
She has been working, but it's not in the way it's
this put her
this
back
much.
on the map. As she's a comedic genius.
She is, yeah.
Amanda, what did you find in terms of your training? I mean, something that maybe young actors out here might find useful, that helped you get over that hump of you know, being nervous or worried about, you know, how you were coming off?
I mean, part of it's more therapy than anything. Like, you just go to therapy and, like,
everyone go to therapy.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend that for everybody. But, like, you know, you learn that, like, who said? Is it Marilyn Monroe? Somebody said, like, other people's opinion of me is none of my business. And that was really helpful to realize people are always going to like you or dislike you for random reasons, so you might as well be true to yourself, and you'll find the people that like you. That's not really an acting note. That's just a life note.
Yeah.
what part of my training, I guess, helped me get over my anxiety?
helped you feel more confident, and is
think-
the reason you're wearing those green pumps.
Yeah, I feel like improv definitely does help, because I think improv, that's why like a lot of businesses will have their workers do improv classes, because it's like trust building. It also shows you that you can think on your feet and be resourceful.
To try things.
Yeah, to try things and fail and be like, oh, I tried
We've both
something.
done lots of things that have, where I've had terrible audiences sometimes, just for whatever reason. They're tired, traffic was bad, they just don't like it, or they were dragged there by a date. And you just have to be like, well, that sucked.
Like, it is what it is.
Just get back on stage the next night.
So, in the world of conventions, I want to take us back in time to, if you can recall, your first experience coming out and doing these conventions and meeting the fans and so on. How did it hit you when people first started coming up to your table and telling you what the work that you did means to them and has done for their life? How do you have distinct memories of some of those first interactions?
Yeah, I mean, the first convention I went to was in London, and it was amazing because they were going to fly me to London, and give me some cash. And the show was being promoted in London, so it was on whatever their network is for cartoons. I can't remember, and it was Believe It, right? So it was just like all over the place because they aired it constantly, but people, only diehard fans had already seen the show in Japanese, so it hadn't really come out yet. So they were fans, but they didn't come, talk to me that way. And then I went to, I think the next convention I went to was Otakon, which is massive. It's like 120,000 people, maybe?
I'm not 100% sure, but that's the con where I first technically met her.
Yeah.
I was like a college student at the time. I was a theater major, and I like asked her a question. And honestly, it was probably the most annoying thing because it's the question we get asked all the time. So I'm guilty of doing it too. I
don't mind it.
How did you get into voice acting?
Yeah.
Which is like there's videos of every voice actor telling their story on YouTube that I could have watched. But she was very kind, and she answered my question. And I remember being like, I'm gonna work with her one day.
And then I walked out of the studio one day, and Amanda had already started recording Boruto, and I had too, but she had recorded more than me, and we had not met because we record alone. And so, but at the same studio, and sometimes we can overlap, but now we don't, obviously. She goes, wait, you're Maile, right? And I said, yeah. And she goes, I'm Amanda. And I was like, Amanda Miller? You're Boruto? She's like, yeah, I met you at Otakon, and you told me like your advice on how to be a voice actor. I was like, this is wild.
Yeah, it actually worked.
Yeah.
But also just like, it was cool because it was like, 10 years later maybe, but it was just, she was really
small world.
She was sweet then, and like, she was like, I met her, and she doesn't disappoint. Who you see on stage is who Maile is, which I really like, because a lot of, we're actors. We can put on shows, and so you have people who are very pleasant, and then backstage they're like awful to people, but Miley's just, she's cool. So anyway, I didn't mean to like girl crush. Sorry.
It's all right. I'll take it.
I know you're married.
I'll take whatever I can get.
I'll fight Lisa later.
All right. I'll pay to see that.
That'll be a special VIP event at 4 p.m. You can get your tickets over here. Let's turn it over to you, the magnificent audience. My friend back here, Sarah, with the microphone. Sarah is the person you will bribe to be the next person up to ask a question. So make sure that you you get your bribes ready. Who's got a question for us? Who's got a question?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. So Itachi, that's who I am here. Does he have any kind of powers over, that you know of Kakashi here?
I think he has some powers over everybody if he tries hard enough.
Itachi over Kakashi? Or was that the question?
I think it's because I think he's, awful. So, you know how people are manipulative?
So yeah, they have more leeway when you don't play by the rules.
That's right. Exactly. Yes.
Who's next? Who's got a question? Like I said, bribes work. Sarah will accept cash.
Awesome. So first, before I go with my question, I just want to say thank you very much. Naruto's been a huge part of my life pretty well since I was born. And it's fantastic, and it's kind of what got me into the whole voice acting field and everything, which is great. So my actual question is the whole arc of like Sasuke versus Naruto and that whole rivalry, and when you voice that whole final battle in the final valley.
No spoilers.
No. How did how did that like impact you, I guess, and like all the emotions and stuff that ran through your head when you were doing that?
For the first part of, I mean, it was pretty long, but for the first part of it, it was sort of like business as usual, right? And then as we got towards the last ones, it was like, it felt like a piece of me was really sad. And just because the show was ending and that was ending, that part of the show was ending. But, you know, it was more emotional for me that this 15-year journey of like 730 episodes was coming to a close. And so that also informed the way that I played the scenes, I think. Subconsciously or consciously, I'm not sure. Hey, good luck with voice acting.
Hi. Well, I mean, me too. I grew up with the show, and me and my friends actually talk about it in recess, and like Naruto was like part of our life. And actually, I want to ask about it. I mean, obviously, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll be very, very vague. So Naruto is kind of this, you know, kid who grew up discriminated, bullied, shunned by his village, and you see this evolution through the original Naruto series, Naruto Shippuden, especially where he evolves and he basically overcomes and becomes the Hokage, and he earned his keep, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, Boruto is kind of this messianic figure. People, you know,
Messianic.
No, people in the I've seen people call him like, you know, everything from like Messiah to like Jesus Kun, all kinds of names. Who's kind of like a very powerful figure right from the get-go. I just want to ask how the dynamic works. You know, like one like Naruto, he really worked hard for it, and Boruto has kind of been given a lot of it from the get-go.
I feel like I actually really think it's good writing because you never want to start a show or a movie and have the character end up in the same place. So like if you just started it off where Boruto is perfectly well adjusted and you know understands that he's entitled and all that stuff, then it's not interesting. So it's like, so Naruto had to go from, you know, having nothing to achieving his dreams and becoming Hokage and like building the family, like, you know, building his chosen family, and like, so his journey was nothing to something, and then Boruto's journey, it seems like, if we go by what the first episode of Boruto, will probably be, you know, having everything to losing everything. So it's like, I think that is more interesting. And also what I like is that, you know, Naruto is still the lovable, you know, was knuckle-headed ninja, but, you know, like, he's not a bad dad, but he doesn't know how to balance work and home life, and I think that's cool too, because then it gives Naruto growth too, because it's not interesting to see perfect characters. Nobody wants to see like a Mary Sue or whatever, where it's just like,
Yeah.
Naruto's a wonderful dad and a great Hokage, end of story, you know. So I like that, you know, they're kind of going on a journey across, like, not across each other, but I think like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like answering it, but
that makes sense.
I like the fact that there is an arc. So Boruto has to learn that, like, his dad, to respect his dad and be like, oh, my dad's been through a lot. Like, because he only sees the world from his perspective. We all see the world from our own perspective and our own lived experience. So yeah, I like that Boruto's a little brat in the beginning, and then like he becomes more mature, he learns more. His dad realizes, you know what, I should be there for my kids and maybe not send shadow clones to their birthday, and you know, like, yeah, it's good writing, I think.
Yeah. Same.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for coming today, especially during the difficult time we have, like the pandemic. And then I just want to say, like, just have two questions. So one of them is that what I like about Naruto is that similar to Dragon Ball Z, that it's like one of like the big three.
What compared to what?
Like kind of like Dragon Ball Z, like.
What?
What is this? This little.
What's Dragon Ball Z?
It's
some little show I've heard of.
It's
I've
a
never
very
heard of it.
niche show. I mean, small audience. It'll get there someday.
Very, very indie, obscure.
Niche.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, if you, I like that after Dragon Ball Z, let's say the generation, the next generation will look at Naruto, and then like my nephews, they're looking at Demon Slayer. But I don't like Demon Slayer that much because I'm like, I grew up on Dragon Ball Z and Naruto. I like the action in that more.
Right.
And then what I like about Naruto is that from the beginning, they show that they're all struggling, and then he's figuring himself out and his powers. Eventually, he gets to the level that he wants to get there. And then they discuss if you work hard, dedication, sheer focus, and will, you're able to get whatever you want in life, and I like that.
Yeah.
And then in Boruto, there's a similar theme arc too, that he's discovering himself with his friends, who are like helping him figure out these fight these bad guys and stuff. Now, I like how even the ending was for Naruto, like how the both friends. I mean, everybody got a good ending. But then my personal question is that with you guys, did you ever meet the creator in person?
No.
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 So then,
No.
you didn't even meet the Japanese voice actors or any of them, or?
No.
None of the Japanese crew, not even the
One
director.
time we did a thing in the beginning where she and I said hello to each other. I was supposed to go to New York Comic Con and it didn't happen for some reason, but she was there. So we just kind of said hello. It was through Japanese TV. So I've never met her. I would love to meet her. I think she's great.
Well, we need to add that to the list. Next year.
I'm surprised Anime Expo hasn't done that because they have a lot of Japanese guests.
Yeah, but Anime Expo I think they like the Japanese guests more
They
than
do. They don't like
like
their
the
dub
American
actors.
actors so much.
Well, Fan Expo sure loves them.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. No, what I wanted to say was that it would be nice to have you guys meet the creator.
Oh, yeah.
And have because of course the translator there, and you guys can converse. Because I even asked 2 years ago. I forgot for the life of me. I forgot the Goku's voice actor's name for now.
Sean Schammel.
Yeah, thank you. So he said the same thing. He didn't meet Akira Toriyama in person. He said that, we never meet. So it kind of sucks that I feel if I watch anime, I'm going to watch your voices. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be like, okay, these are the people for me. But then it sucks that you guys are not able to meet them. I would like to, in the future, that everybody meets each other,
Well,
like the creator.
the good news I've got for you is at the end of the show every year, they put out a survey asking what kind of stuff you would like to see, and they do very seriously look at that sort of thing. And Fan Expo is the size of organization after buying Wizard and pretty much
buying the world.
You really should put that in the survey, and it's something that they would definitely look into, and it sounds like they'd be up for it. So.
Of course, yeah, we'd love that. Thank you.
Who's up next? Who's up next? Right here.
So I was wondering if you would have preferred Naruto and I guess Boruto's verbal tick to stayed as Believe It for the whole series.
No. Would you?
I mean, it was kind of nice for a while, and then they just kind of dropped it.
Because they told me it was a trademark issue, but I think it's because the fans hated it.
And it was only you said 17
18 episodes. We set it in, only 18. But I always try and slide it in, it'll be like, I'm gonna go over believe it or not, Anytime it says believe it, I try and do it, and they're like, stop it, don't do that.
Well, so you said it was something where they put it, the reason everybody thinks it was in the whole show was because it was in all the ads or promos for Naruto?
It was in all the ads, and I think for a lot of people, if they watch it from the beginning, that's what they got into the show, so it's in their head, And it was repeated a lot, actually. And now I say, sometimes.
Yeah,
that's kind of...
That we have to say that for Boruto too, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like what they're saying.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't really translate.
It doesn't translate, yeah.
Right here.
Hi, so it's kind of like a two-part question.
No,
So
just one part.
Sorry, only one.
So
Find a way.
obviously Naruto has been super influential for the past generation, and Boruto is gonna be influential for the next generation. What was the experience like knowing how influential you were as Naruto for this generation, and then what's it like having to take up the mantle to fill up those shoes to become Boruto to influence this next generation coming up?
Well, for me, I would say it's not just... I would say this generation is as big a fandom as your parents' generation. I mean, really, it's been 15 years, and because of the pandemic, I've done 3 conventions since, things have gotten a little bit better, and I'm vaccinated and all that. And what I've found is the pandemic has made it explode.
Everybody's had time to catch up.
Yeah, and they didn't have time before, so everyone's like, I just binged it during the pandemic.
Right, you had a whole year to watch all
700
700 and something
Yeah,
episodes.
they're not going anywhere, and it's parents and kids. Lots of kids, more than a few years ago, right? It's kind of made a resurgence, and then the fact that it was on Hulu and Netflix or whatever it's on, that also made it more popular because people then could binge it, and they didn't have to wait for 3 a.m. on Saturday nights, which is when it airs in LA on Toonami. So,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big mantle to take on, especially because, like, you know, it's like the Harry Potter of the anime world. It's like people literally grew up with this character. They're very protective of him. And, yeah, like, I want to make sure that I do the character justice of Boruto and, you know, the way I talk about Naruto. But yeah, it's weird. I still haven't wrapped my head around the fact that, like, in like 10 years or 15 years, like, I don't know how long Boruto's going to run, but it's like, maybe it'll be like that, where it's like, people are like, I grew up with you. Like, it's still weird for me. Like, there was the very first question I said, or somebody asked, what was it? It was something like, you know, or no, it was you, when you asked, like, what was it like when people, like, come up to you and tell you how your work affects them. That's still weird for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's still surreal to be like, what, me? Like, I'm just in a room talking into a microphone. And it's cool, but it's definitely, I don't know, like, did you ever get used to that, where people are like, I grew up with you, you've helped me through depression? Like, I've heard people talk about how Naruto helped them through a really rough time.
Saying I grew up with you, you're my childhood, I kind of am used to that. But then when people get really personal with me sometimes, and they'll tell me their struggles, especially if they grew up without parents, or they grew up in a crappy environment, or, you know, they started watching when their parents were getting divorced, or, you know, whatever it is. And they'll really open up to me, you know, and I find it, individually, I find it cathartic, you know, to listen to people. And what they're saying is they got better, or they feel better. And so that, to me, still affects me. But when people say, you're my childhood, I'm like, yeah. You know?
Does that make you feel old? Or is it kind of like...
I am old, Amanda.
What? No, I always feel weird when I say that. I'm like, I grew up with you, and people kind of like, their face drops a little bit, because they're just like, okay, so, you know.
Nah, I've had like 10,000 people say that to me.
Well, and also, I guess with voiceover, voice actors expect it, because they, like, you know, like the people that I tell, like, you know, the Grey Griffins, or, you know,
Nancy Cartwright.
They've been doing it since I was a kid, so I'm not like saying, hey, you're old.
Right.
They know that they've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, so.
You can look it up on IMDb.
Yeah.
Right here.
Hi, I just wanted to say I love you guys. And also, I usually watch the original Japanese audio, but since the pandemic started, I think I've just been really getting used to dub, especially when I'm, you know, just doing stuff, but I still wanted to watch Boruto and Naruto. So I just really wanted to say I love you guys. And my question is, in terms of, this is for both of you, by the way, in terms of character growth, what would you like to see from your respective characters now that Boruto has gone from, you know, a kind of, let's quote unquote brat, as you would say, to someone who's kind of has this, who sees the world on his shoulders now? And for Naruto, you know, he's a father and a Hokage. Like, what do you hope to see from your characters moving forward in the Boruto series?
Well, I hope Naruto does less paperwork.
There's always, like,
A lot
piles
of
on his
paperwork.
desk. I'm like, honey, get an assistant.
Yeah.
Outsource that stuff.
Like, they have trains, but they still have to write scrolls. I don't know. Isn't there a typewriter? When was that made? 1800s?
Yeah, the technology in the show is always very, it's like
very
inconsistent.
flimsy, and then you watch the movie and you're like, wait a minute.
There's got to at least be a printing press somewhere.
Yeah, they've got like secret ninja tools. They've got like, you know, like little Game Boys and stuff like that.
Yeah, you see stuff and you're like, wait a minute.
But then they still have scrolls.
Like they sent up an air balloon in the last episode I recorded to get the technology, and I'm like, why doesn't he have a phone?
Right.
Anyway, but character-wise, I think what Amanda said before is what I agree with. Be a
Yeah.
better father.
Yeah, and I think kind of what I said before too. Like, I want to see, you're already seeing that growth from Boruto, where he's realizing he's having empathy for his dad. He didn't realize what his dad had gone through, because I imagine Naruto probably didn't talk about it much. Like, Naruto's a survivor. He's not going to sit around being like, well, my life was hard and blah blah blah. Like, he's going to be like, he's always got a positive attitude. So I imagine at home he's probably not like, let me sit you down and tell you about all the trauma I've been through, son. Yeah. You know, so it's really cool to see that growth. I'm curious. I mean, I want him to become an even better person, more noble person, but I don't know, people who've read ahead for me are saying things might be around the corner. So I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I don't know. I don't know what happens.
How do you contend with that, with people walking up and going, so, how do you feel about blah, blah, blah that happened in this?
They'll ask me stuff, and I have no idea what they're talking about.
Same.
I think somebody asked me once, they're like, do you think Kawaki's the bad guy or Boruto? And I'm like, oh, well, in the first episode, it looks like Kawaki. So I'm like, oh, Kawaki. And they're like, I think it's the opposite. And so now I'm like, what's happening? So,
Right.
Is that in the manga maybe? Like, would I get more context? Because I have no idea where they're getting that from. It's not in the manga. Is it just like people speculating online? Okay. Oh, not yet. Okay. Yeah, because again, people are always asking us like, when are the next episodes? Or I guess Naruto's done, but like, they're always like, when are the next episodes of Boruto coming out? We don't know anything. I never know plot points ahead of time. I don't know.
No, nothing. They tell us nothing.
We're the last ones to know. Like in the room, they'll be like, okay, so today this character dies. I'm like, oh, well, all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys usually know this stuff and the plot points before us because you're watching the subtitles, which are ahead, or you're reading the manga. So you're informing me.
Yeah, for sure. I learn a lot from conventions.
Yeah.
So that's what my next month is going to be like.
Yes.
Over here.
What was your first reaction to when I told you you were going to be voicing in the new series Boruto?
I mean, it was definitely weird because it was also very quick. Like
Did you know that's what you were auditioning for?
Yeah, like I knew I was auditioning for that, but I didn't really know much about the character or whatever. So like, because I don't think the movie had come out yet here, so it's not like I could watch something about it. And then. Yeah, I auditioned, sent in my audition. A couple weeks later, hadn't heard anything. So I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting in my improv class, and I look down, and I get an email, and it's like, hey, congratulations, you booked the role of Boruto. We're starting the video game tomorrow. It was just very like a quick whirlwind thing. So I didn't really have time, I guess, to like process that. But also an interesting thing is like, we started with the video game, then we did the movie, and then there was like a year and a half where we didn't do anything, and then we started the show. So you'll probably also hear the voice kind of slowly change as we kind of find it. So yeah, I think it kind of got more. We settled in probably around like after episode 3 or something, because the Jamie, the casting director, was directing that episode. He's like, I don't like what you've been doing. Do this.
Yeah,
so
he's the big boss too.
But it worked. It was
he knows his stuff.
Yeah. So hope that answered your question.
We got about 10 minutes left. Who else has questions? Okay, I think we might be able to get to everybody. I hope we can.
We'll make it
Go
fast.
For it.
I have a question about Mitsuki. Is he going to be in the next one?
Mitsuki?
He's my favorite.
Oh.
Does he die or does he stay alive?
I don't know.
Is he one of the moon people?
Again, I just know that he. Well, I don't even want to spoil that much because I know a lot of people haven't started. But
yeah, a lot of people.
All I know is who his parent is.
Yeah.
But.
All right, next up, who we got? Right up here, up front.
Hi guys.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Thank you for dubbing the best anime out there right now. I just want to ask, out of all the cast from Naruto and Boruto, this is a question for both of you guys. Who is your favorite to work with, and do you have any funny stories of like a hangout or in the studio?
We don't really record together, but we do have like interactions like at cons and stuff. So it's always fun to like do panels with Maile because we both do like comedy, so it can be like a little bit of a stand-up thing. I also like recording episodes with Steve Bloom because I don't record with him, but the engineer will play. Me and Steve are like neck and neck with trying to do outtakes to leave for other actors. And so the director will play the scene for the other actor with the outtakes in it to like try and see if he can like get them to laugh. And so Steve will leave a ton of them. Like there's almost episodes where there's me and Steve Bloom. You could almost make an entire separate episode just of like dirty outtakes.
And then you could be fired.
Yeah, we would 100% be fired. That's why Viz will never release them. But yeah, it's always fun when Brian's like, Steve has a lot of outtakes for you.
Yeah.
Like,
what a surprise.
Yeah.
We used to write them when we had paper scripts, and Yuri would always write, "You suck," right next to all my lines. And then somebody would do dirty drawings, but I'm not going to say who.
I know who.
And those scripts will be available on eBay after the show. Yeah. Right over here.
Hi, did you guys ever have any creative differences or objections to what you had to say on the show?
Yeah, all the time. I also do ADR writing, so like I'll write the English script that we record for, not for Boruto, but for other shows. So like there's time. I'm very an advocate that dubs should sound natural. I don't want it to sound. To me, I feel like if you want to, watch the Japanese, then you'll watch the the subtitled version. But a lot of times the translations will be very literal and very not how we talk.
There's a big difference between a transliteration and a real adaptation
Yes.
of it so that it suits
So
the
an
cultural
adaptation should be
sensibilities.
like, it should sound natural to our ears. So like the way I'm talking right now, as opposed to like, I don't know. I'm not going to be able to give a good
Were
example.
you speaking in such
Yeah,
a way
yeah, if I
that there
was
were
speaking in
additional
such a, you know,
prepositions?
Very formal.
Yeah, like if Boruto, like there's lines where Boruto's like, if one were to accelerate the blah 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 blah, then he would need to, and I'm like, dude, what if we go faster? You know, like, or like, you know, like changing it to how we would talk. So like all the time we're changing lines.
Yeah, that's a big part of our job with the directors. You know, we'd be like, wait a minute, can I just say this? But we always have to do it as written.
Yeah, just
so
to have it.
that means we just do another alternate and hope and pray that they use the alternate instead of the crap line. But I think Naruto, for our scripts, we had great writers that spent a lot of time, you know, carefully adapting them. So I think in that way we're somewhat better than a lot of other anime shows because we took more time. A lot of the anime that you see doesn't take very much time, and they kind of rush it.
They're just cranking it out, like quantity over quality for a lot of productions.
And we made a conscious decision to kind of Americanize it, you know, as opposed to like literal translation. So that was always fun. I could always tell who wrote the scripts too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, always. Liam O'Brien, who plays Gar, used to adapt a lot of them.
Okay.
Now he's doing Critical Role, so we never see him anymore.
He's
but
too famous.
He's too famous.
Too busy rolling 20s. Right
I don't
over
know what
here.
that means.
It's a D&D term.
D&D reference. Sorry.
You were a math and poli-sci major, but you never did D&D?
I was doing comedy.
Okay, that's true.
Miley was the cool one.
Yeah, she was the cool nerd.
Yeah.
First, I want to mention I also do comedy. I'm an amateur stand-up comic.
Yes.
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, do you often get people who become surprised when you find out that the character you do, that your characters are voiced by women? Because one of my in-laws was really surprised when she found out that Naruto is voiced by a woman.
Yeah, it usually goes like this. Some guy comes up with his bros, and he goes, "See, I told you." And
They exist.
It's a lady.
Yeah, it's a lady. But, you know, with the advent of, you know, so many people, I can see you taping it right now on your phones, and they put it on YouTube. So it's a little less, you know, surprising.
I think a lot of people, it's kind of flattering when people don't know. Yeah. It's like, great, that means we're doing our job. But a lot of people don't understand why, but it's because when you have, so boys' voices change. So like the voice of Charlie Brown, I heard they're always having to like replace every 3 to 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
Every year boys' voices get deeper and whatever. So if you want consistency for a character that doesn't age, so like, you know, Bart Simpson or Naruto.
Same age.
You know, Naruto ran for 15 years. Could you imagine like if they had hired a boy and then over 15 years he's like, hey, no, you know, like I'm Naruto, but he's still supposed to be a teenager.
The lead boy in the Loud House has been replaced twice already.
Yeah, so it's easier to have women because our voices don't. Our voices do change over time gradually, but like, and also if you think of, maybe I'm getting too into like the biology of it, but like, you know, prepubescent boys and girls have very similar vocal structure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know, women can sound like boys, but it's harder for a grown man to sound like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why they don't have like grown men playing young girls. I guess you have like Tina Belcher on
Yeah.
I don't know.
We had a couple replacements, but not many.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have a show like Steven Universe where they planned it around the fact that they knew that their lead actor, his voice was going to change, and it was kind of built into the evolution of the show. But that's a much rarer thing.
Yeah, I don't hear that very much.
Who we got? Who's next? Who's next? Right there.
Hi, I just had a question. You know, when you started recording Naruto and Boruto, what was your biggest challenge kind of getting into it? And like, had you worked on something like that in the past? Because I know with the translation, it's going to be a little bit different from something
Sure.
that's just written in English or whatever.
I had not done a lot of dubbing. I did some ADR work, which means you dub lines like in a movie, but you know, not for cartoons. I actually don't do anime that much, except for Naruto and Boruto. So technically getting down the dubbing part took a little bit, but not too long. And then what was the other part of the question?
That like was more difficult than others?
The job? You know, I think dubbing is somewhat more difficult than original animation because original animation, you're creating the character. So you're not trying to, and you're also, they do the artist renditions after you record. But, you know, we have to match flaps. and it's it's technical in a way. If you're dyslexic, you shouldn't probably be doing dubbing. It moves very fast.
That's what a lot of people don't get is like original animation, it's a breeze. You're saying the lines however you want to say them, however slow you want to say them, you can do whatever, and then they animate to you, like she said. With dubbing, you're trying to give a realistic, authentic, emotional performance while also patting your head and rubbing your belly, pat your head, and like, because you're having to make sure you not only match the timing of the line, you have to make it match the level of the Japanese. So if there's whispering, you have to match a pre-existing performance to an extent, and like you're doing a bunch of things at once. So
and still make it your own.
And still make it your own, and not sound robotic or sound speed racery, where you're just like, oh, we're going to do this thing, aww.
So I know that you guys said that you sort of don't really know what's happening ahead of time. You sort of dodge the spoilers and whatnot. But when those episodes do come up, when there's a certain character parting or say someone dies, do you get emotional through the attachment that you've had to said character throughout the show?
Yeah, for sure. Like Lady Chio, that was pretty emotional. Yeah, I think so. Unfortunately, we do learn a lot of spoilers by doing video games. So, like, it'll be like, what? This happens? And it kind of can't resonate during a video game because you have to just keep screaming battle cries. So you're like, oh, and then he dies. And you're like, wait a minute.
You don't have time to process it.
Yeah. So it comes out better in the actual show.
So unfortunately, we're just out of time. I've got one thing to wrap us up. I touched on earlier, what those early experiences were like, coming out to conventions, talking to fans, interacting with everybody. Maile, you just said that this is your third convention back since they started happening again.
Third live, yeah.
Third live.
Salt Lake City and Indiana.
What's it been like being back out here, seeing the lovely people of Toronto in particular?
Well, I like the Toronto people because everyone does keep their mask on. And even though it's
Unlike
a pain in the ass at the
Dallas.
airport, the COVID stuff getting tested, and we both got picked randomly to get tested again.
I get picked randomly at the airport every time.
Yeah.
Randomly.
But I felt much safer like this and this organization. So that's a big deal, and it is weird to see people again. What you forget is that it's a lot of things to a lot of people, and it's a lot of energy, So yesterday I was really tired, you kind of forget what it's like speaking to hundreds of people a day, and sometimes even more. But it's great too because the one-on-one interaction is so much fun, and people have been so cooped up that they're dying to be fans and have that interaction. So that's really fun. So thank you for even showing up. I know we both really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I also just really enjoy, I feel like, being in our own little worlds for a year, I feel like the world has become so, split, and this reminds us, we're people, behind the computer screen, just seeing people, and, I don't care what anybody's political persuasion here, it's kind of nice to just be we're just fans, it just feels really uniting to be back in person again, and, not be, in our own little bubbles, so I just really love seeing people, and they're, humanity.
And then also I really love when people dress up, the cosplay, you guys, it's just awesome. I don't know half the people you're cosplaying as, but even I just see the people walking around in amazing outfits, and coming in, we took a van because we have to come in the back way, and I was like, some of the guys that drive the van, they're like, I don't know your show. And I'm like, well, that person's from my show. That person's a fan of my show. That person's a fan of I see the line, and that's kind of amazing, to be able to know that, I can, if you're wearing a headband, I can identify you. But that happens in real life, too,
It's also, that's, I think, the other part of it, too, is just seeing the world starting to go back to normal a little bit and seeing people bring their passions out. And it's just so nice to see, I don't know. It feels like people are extra creative after being cooped up.
And then we get to see each other, which is also pretty fun.
I've got two little bits of housekeeping. You're going to be back at your tables after this, yes?
Yes.
For a little bit longer?
I have to take a quick break, so I'll be back there in about a half an hour, 35 minutes, something like that, because I haven't taken a break yet today. So.
And I'll be back at my table, but I will have to leave for a flight around 3, so if you want to get something, do it in the next hour.
So that make sure that you take care of that. On this stage right after this, we've got Veronica Taylor, Robert Patrick on the other stage in the next slot. can we give yourselves a round of applause for being so great with your masking, your adherence to all of the weird restrictions that we've been under, like sitting on the ground and everything. Keep it going for our crew in the yellow shirts, everyone. And let's blow the roof off this place one more time for Maile Flanagan and Amanda Miller.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Believe it.